And given the amount that people talk about things like how much the stories they consume or the things they encounter help them determine or like decide the way that they respond to things in their everyday lives. So like, people reading old stories like Wheel of Time, Harry Potter, whatever, like fantasy stories from like a while ago, they can look back and almost like see that the way that they would respond to things is somewhat based on that. Or like they at least, when people are young, they can maybe get consumed by a story so much that they care about it a lot. And it can frame a lot of like the way they perceive the world and the way they act and react to things. And when most of that responding to everything is in stories where everybody's really dumb and really stupid and just trying to hurt each other, then it makes sense that the world is also in a state where a lot of people still haven't reached a level where they are not jerks, where they're not trying to hurt each other, and they're still kind of dipping into there frequently to be like, I need, like, normalizing vengeance. Vengeance is not just, instead of vengeance being like this really trash thing, like you have to be completely useless as a human to think you need vengeance because you haven't figured out like the most basic stuff, to, okay, maybe vengeance isn't a great idea, to vengeance is not a good idea, to there are so many other things you could do instead of vengeance, to like, seeing what vengeance actually is and how it's just like this reactive thing of people having no idea what they're doing, like until you go up all those scales. Right now, not only is vengeance not looked at for what it is, but is almost praised or normalized to being like something that it's perpetuated in all stories. It's just amazing that most media is still in that level, in that playing field of like keeping things
and
bad.
One argument someone might have is that people could like watch a movie where something happens and say, well, I'm not going to do that because it was just a movie and I'm not. But you have to be quite smart to do that. And why don't you, why aren't there actually characters who are smart enough to, like, in the movie itself, be someone who would look at that action and go, I'm not going to do that. And
like, why not make movies with people and characters who could respond decently to situations?
And also I was going to add that if you're saying this in the show they do something like this, but I'm smart enough, I'm not going to do that thing. You're also implying with that stories don't matter, or like that your art form. You're saying, well, the art form doesn't actually matter to me, so therefore, I'm smart enough, I'm not going to do the stupid things in the show, and that's my argument for allowing the stupid thing in the show, which basically you're saying, this thing means nothing to me. And so that's it's just a lousy argument.
It reminds me of something, there's this author, Steven Erikson, who he wrote Malazan, and it's like a really big saga or whatever, but he's really into the craft and knows the craft well, and he's always likes to talk about the craft, things like that. And he does have an article in one of his writing somethings, like in kind of writing craft articles, and he talks about how one of the things he came to terms with early on was how a lot of authors who are big or just writers in general who write a lot don't really have that sense or like that care for what they are doing, so they're naturally perpetuating things like blind prejudices and revenge, or just all these things that are inherent in media because it's done because it's normal and like it's been normalized, and it's only been normalized because people keep doing it, and none of it is good. And if an author, like a writer or storyteller in any media, any form of art, does not have enough awareness to see this, then they will continue to perpetuate it and still operate in that level where they're ignorant of what they're doing, and helping others maintain that level, because anytime that somebody else consumes a story, if it actually does have any meaning to them at all, the meaning that it has for them is that being a jerk to other people is fine. Not just maybe I should think about it or like any level above that, but it is more than fine. It is normal. Like this is acceptable and the thing to do. Like that's how lost somebody can be when they're a writer and a reader or an audience and a like storyteller in that little bubble down there, if it's just perpetuated and approached with no care at all. And Erickson pointed it out, but I've seen anyone from Ursula Le Guin to whoever else pointed out too, just like really authors who care about their craft enough to understand that what they're doing can have meaning to people, whether the author wants it to or not. Some reader will give it meaning or find meaning in it or something. And there's purpose for what one is doing that is not just throwaway nonsense. And when you have that purpose behind what you're doing, then you might think enough and care enough about what you're doing to make it worth having in the world.